The Republican Party is bearing the brunt of the blame for the debt ceiling crisis in the eyes of the public. And although both sides of the aisle say there is really no winner, the GOP may need some damage control. Izzy Santa is the communications director for the Hispanic media with the Republican National Committee, and she joins us from Washington, D.C. with the GOP response. Izzy, thank you so much for being on Arise America. I do appreciate it. My first question to you, so what's the takeaway here? What lesson has the GOP learned from this 16-day experience?
You know, the 16 days have shown that Democrats aren't willing to negotiate. We had to wait till the last minute. Republicans fought the good fight. They really tried to make several proposals, and Senator Harry Reid never stepped up to the plate, never held a single vote. So what we're seeing is that we're going to have a tough battle going forward, but hopefully there'll be some serious negotiations about how to fight our spending, how to fix our economy, and keep moving forward. In your report, you were talking about how the economy is doing great. Look, Hispanics and blacks have a high unemployment rate. So to say that the economy is doing well and moving along, I totally reject that premise.
Well, I think probably a lot of that is based on the fact that the economy does seem to be recovering, as well as the deficit is shrinking at a faster rate than is predicted. So it really depends on who's interpreting the data. Let me just go back to something that you just said. You said the lesson the GOP learned was that Democrats will not negotiate. Would you not fairly say that it wasn't that the Democrats would not negotiate, they wouldn't use a law that had already been debated, passed, signed, and tested in the Supreme Court as a negotiation tool? Isn't that the fair assessment?
Look, just because you have a law doesn't mean you can't make improvements to it. We proposed, the original proposal was, let's defund it. Then we compromised and we said, let's delay it. And that was rejected. And the fact is that in the House earlier this year, there was a vote to delay the individual and employer mandate, and 35 Democrats agreed with us and voted with Republicans saying, you're right, Republicans. Employers are getting a delay, so should the individuals, and that's exactly what we're saying. And if Democrats aren't willing to step up to the plate and realize that this is harmful to the economy, that you're noticing that we're going from a full-time economy to a part-time economy, then I don't know what news you're reading, because the fact is that this is harmful and we need to make corrections in the law.
I don't know that a lot of people would agree with you, but we'd have to get someone on to speak to that specifically. I don't want to argue the point with you. I just want to ask you the question. So let me move on to this. I think that there probably was a calculated gamble that was taken by the Tea Party, the extreme right faction of the GOP, and Ted Cruz, who led the charge in this. Do you think that Ted Cruz did damage to the credibility of the Republican Party?
We clearly disagreed on some tactics, but the fact is that Ted Cruz highlights and shines the fact on that Obamacare is broken. Currently, the implementation is not working. Former Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said, look, somebody needs to get fired. This isn't working. And the fact is that he did bring attention to the issue, and Republicans look forward to negotiate going down in January and February with Democrats, and hopefully we'll have a serious discussion about how to control our debt.
We've heard this line a lot throughout this whole process, and in fact, since the law was, since the bill was passed into law of the Affordable Care Act, and that is that it's broken, it's flawed, and that it's not working. Very briefly, can you be specific in exactly how this is not working, considering that it's still being rolled out right now?
Oh, absolutely. I'll go back to last year. Last year, there was a 1099 requirement, which is an onerous paperwork regulation. And you know what? That got repealed, and that was part of Obamacare. Then there was the Class Act, and the Class Act was another part of the health insurance bill. HHS secretary said, we can't afford this, so we're going to stop the implementation. Then the president said, businesses can't afford this. And you know what? He delayed the employer mandate because the law is flawed. And that's what we're talking about. The fact is, Obamacare is not moving the economy forward. There is a lot of uncertainty. The website isn't working. And speaking from a Hispanic perspective, if the president had 3 years to implement the website, and you know what happened? He never created the Spanish website. It's still not functioning. It's not bilingual. So the law is clearly not functional. And we need to take a serious look at it and make sure that we are correcting the healthcare law.
So let me ask you this. I started off by asking you what lessons that the GOP has learned, and you gave me your answer. But I'm wondering, you know, the American public, we're not happy at all that the government or even the possibility of default was used in this fight against so-called Obamacare. The numbers for the Republicans in Congress plummeted during this time. Also, Obama's numbers plummeted, but not nearly as much. So what I'm wondering is, has there been a lesson learned enough that we will not repeat this, that the Republicans will not set as an agenda to repeat this whole process again come January?
Your colleague was mentioning the McConnell quotes, and that's from a National Review article. And in that same article, McConnell stated the fact that we're not here to have shutdowns. We're not here to negotiate on our debt ceiling. And so the fact is that I think Republicans are committed to having a good faith conversation with Democrats come January and February. You've already saw that they have appointed a budget committee to go in and talk about this. And so all we can do is just hope and see that Democrats and Republicans can come to an accord.
And what's your thoughts then? You know, Mr. Boehner, John Boehner, of course, took a lot of heat. He was caught between a rock and a hard place during this whole process. Many called for him losing this position at the end of all of this. However, he was instrumental in getting this vote passed overnight. Has he come through this unscathed, or should he lose his job? You talked about people needing to lose their job as a result of what you would call flawed Obamacare. What about Boehner's job?
Well, let's just state for a fact, the healthcare law is flawed. Even Robert Gibbs.
But I'm asking you about John Boehner.
Okay, I'm just answering your first concern. And now on to Speaker Boehner. The fact is, yesterday Republicans said, you know, we're going to stand with you, Speaker. We're not going to default. And they voted with the Speaker on the Senate bipartisan bill. So the Speaker is working with his own caucus, and he'll look forward to work with Democrats.
All right, Izzy Santa, thank you very much for your time. Do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.